I am actually a fairly late entrant to the field, so I don't know if you're aware. I am actually a finance postgraduate, have worked with the bank, went into renewable energy consulting, then dabbled a bit with entrepreneurship, then came on to technical assistance, and now sustainability.
That's a perfect route to be in this field.
I think there is no route to be in this field. There's no right or wrong time. Any time is a good time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yes. And
I
once you
mean,
start here, you realize that it's all around you in every sphere of life and everything that you do and say. So
absolutely. Anirudh, you're able to hear me? So I was just wondering, probably we'll start the session uh, at 11, and I was just
Yeah,
wondering if
yeah,
we
I'm
have to do
here.
the YouTube because
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
and I hope you as we used to do after 11:20 we'll close the streaming so that we can have non-recording session.
Yeah, so we can keep that up to Miss Devyani if she wants to allow that also to be streamed. The Q&A can be valuable as well.
No, since I think 11:30 is 11:20. The what we had discussed is till 11:20 to 11:30. Will the stream the video,
Uh-huh.
after which it's going to be a discussion where we
Okay,
would not
okay.
be streaming.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
what
We
we.
can, we can do that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. So we are expecting people by 11, and
no worries. We can start at 11. I mean, I have great respect for Saturday morning people making time to attend this. I think that's great.
no, I should definitely say thank you so much for accommodating a Saturday morning with us. I mean, it's a family time for most of us, and I know being a mother and a parent, you have there's an expectation from the family at least on a Saturday. So, but you've been
I have two sons, okay? One is a teenager, one is a pseudo teenager or what they call a teenager. So I think they are
finished.
extremely happy when on a holiday the mother is occupied. Yes, I don't think there are any complaints, but I think kids have been extremely accommodative of this whole situation because all of us have faced a problem, but I think it's just been tragic and heartbreaking for them. 2 years, they've really been locked inside the house, and
Yeah.
they're doing a fairly decent job of coping up. And I think all time is family time, and I do get my glares like, shoot, go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I have a year-old boy, so uh, I mean, he's around. I mean, you might hear some noise as well as we speak.
Why ever
So
not? Why ever not? So it's all right. And besides, we have a pet, fairly recent addition. I mean, if we consider, and I realize a pet is like an alarm clock without a snooze. He wants to get up, you need to get up. That's it. There is
that's
no
it.
cajoling it to go back to sleep, right? So my day pretty much starts at 5. So
Oh wow. Amazing. So yeah, I mean, this is a new normal, and we are all adjusting to it. And there's a lesson or two to learn from this new norm. But yeah, I do hope kids get to play more soon. I
It's
mean,
11 o'clock.
Okay, great. So we'll just start and we'll let people hop in whenever they as and when they do. Uh, Thank you so much for being here for our SusTalks number 17. This is something we started middle of last year, and infrequently on Saturdays, as and when we find somebody awesome to bring uh, to the to the floor. Uh, with the vision of making sustainability a default choice, we just engage in a really open-ended conversation about how do we get there? How do we really make sustainability a default choice? Uh, so we had paused this for a little bit because we've been focusing extremely hard on the one core product of SusMafia right now, which is called the Corporado program. That's our effort to make sustainability a default choice for Indian companies. And we realized that it would be a very good idea to actually stitch the two together. Make our SusTalks also focus on sustainability for corporates and really restart this Saturday 11 a.m. series. So today's speaker is Ms. Devyani Hari, the director for the Center for Responsible Business. I'm going to ask Ganesh to do a very quick intro and then hand over to Ms. Devyani Hari to take us through her little masterclass. Ganesh?
Yeah, firstly, thanks, Anirudh. I mean, you've been the champion in building SusTalks, and it was your brainchild to build SusTalks. So I'm very glad that we have been able to do such talks again. So that's one good thing for all the community members. So Devyani, of course, invited Hari and me for the recent LinkedIn live session for the water reuse and water management LinkedIn talk. And that's when we came to know more about her work in this field. So Devyani is a postgraduate in finance from IIM Bangalore and has over 18 years of experience across diverse fields, right? Sustainability, circular economy, sustainability financing, project and program management, banking operations, and global transition management and renewable energy financing consulting. And she's, of course, been a director of Center for Responsible Business, which is driving the mission towards in a different way, making sustainability default choice for industries like what we have been doing. I think that's a perfect alignment for all of us working in this direction. And sustainability is also about collaboration. And I feel this discussion by Devyani sharing her work, her interest and work of CRB is going to further catalyze this whole driving sustainability in corporates. So thanks again, Devyani, for accommodating this meeting and discussion with us. And we are excited to work with you. So over to you. Looking forward to an exciting discussion today.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ganesh. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I think I'm quite excited and looking forward. When I heard about the SusMafia concept, I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. And I think that lies at the core of sustainability, right? Because there are so many people. It is also an uphill challenge, right? It's an uphill task because not many people are talking about it. It's considered to be expensive. It is also considered to be a little idealistic, right? For the people who do that. So when you're with like-minded people, it's also like, yes, we are on the right path. And this is the way. And it's very encouraging to see that we have moved from it being an optional conversation to being an absolute must, right? And but we are still at a stage where we have early movers, right? Where we're going to have early mover advantage. There are people still waiting to see when it will become absolutely mandatory for them to do these things, right? So I'm quite happy. I will see this as a session where I get to learn lots. There's some fantastic work happening in your network. So I look forward to this interaction. I put together a short PPT. I mean, I thought it would just help us keep the conversation going. So should I go ahead and share my screen?
Please do, please do. I hope you
Okay,
have credentials to share.
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Just give me a moment, please. I will share my screen now. Okay. So, as Ganesh said, I'm working with the Center for Responsible Business. I will come to it in a bit on what the Center for Responsible Business does. Just a little bit about myself. Like Ganesh has said, I have done my finance postgraduate. I started with the private sector. I meandered a bit, what caught my interest, what caught my fancy. And I must tell you that when I was working in the financial sector back in 2000, I don't think there was much talk happening about ESG. So it was about financial markets, but we weren't talking to that extent. Thereafter, I moved to renewable energy consulting, and I must share that that was a very different experience for me because for the first time, I actually got to take off my private sector perspective a bit. I came in, it was the first time I came across a solar home system. And till I had seen it, all I thought was two lights, a fan, 30,000 rupees. Who's going to pay for it? Right? Who's going to pay for it? And then I went and saw the installation and I realized that what a difference it had made. It was not two lights and a fan. It meant light over a kerosene lamp. It meant for a family that the children could study comfortably. It meant for a woman that when she's cooking, there is not a risk through the kerosene lamp, right? And there was so much that had gone behind in making that system available at a cost that was affordable to these families, right? So that was the first time I had a brush with sustainability, and I got to understand that there is a whole world out there, that needs support, that's exciting, and that provides new opportunities. So, through renewable energy consulting, then I moved with GIZ, where I was with their responsible enterprise finance program. That how do you get bankers and financiers excited to move on to sustainable financing, right? Because let's face it, if finance is directed to this field, people will follow. Investments will happen. You will see new initiatives come up. And how do you direct this towards SMEs who are always, hard pressed for cash? They're always trying to make ends meet when it comes to the organization. How do you encourage the bankers to help these SMEs move on to a sustainable path? And after that, I've been with Center for Responsible
Yeah, very
Business
well.
uh, for over 2 years now. And with Center for Responsible Business, I look at the work related to circular economy, how the private sector looks at SDGs, and what can we do for sustainability with SMEs. So just going ahead, yeah, I think you've seen this. I don't think I need to spend too much time, but it's not bad to reiterate that why sustainability? Why is it that we have to talk this language? Why do we have to make it a mindset and a way of life, right? We know about the climate crisis. We are extremely vulnerable. There is a lot of literature out there which is highlighting our climate risk. Recently, there has been an article which talks about, or a research which says that how we stand to a GDP loss, if we don't do something about climate change. And I think equally important for us is the social crisis, right? I would not just call it social sustainability. I would call it the social crisis, that it needs new solutions. It needs quick action. We know the migrant crisis. We can also see it in the vaccine delivery all around me. I think it's always a matter of concern and frustration that there is not enough information, there is not enough digital access for everyone to be able to access the vaccines that are made available, and especially for the ones who will not be able to afford the paid vaccine. Then reputational risks. I've just shared an example over here. Brands, large organizations still continue to face a huge reputational risk if there are violations found in their operations and their supply chains. Regulatory requirements are changing fast. They're changing at an international level. They're changing at the domestic level. We do have the resource efficiency policy that's being discussed. We do have the mandate for the top 1,000 companies to report on their ESG. We do have a lighter version for SMEs that's being looked at. There is a national action plan that's being developed for human rights. So this is coming our way, and this is coming really fast. Consumers are becoming more aware, right? There is far more understanding. There is far more requirement from the organizations to be transparent, to be traceable, to be able to show that their products have been produced in a responsible manner. Attention by financiers. Sustainable finance is here to stay. Globally, the trends are changing. India is beginning to see a lot of traction. In fact, there is work as we speak happening on a sustainable finance taxonomy for India. Then what does it mean for India? How do you channel finance, and how do you create the capacity of the financiers? Then sustainability commitments. Large brands, large organizations, corporate sector is making commitments. I think you need to pick up any report, but what does that mean for India, which is also part of the value chains, right? It is impacting the value chains because these large brands, these large organizations cannot deliver on this commitment unless their supply chains are with them. And I think this is an opportunity. So, what is important is not just to focus on the commitment that large brands are making. What is important is what is the opportunity for the supply chain, and what are the challenges or realities that supply chains need to highlight, that they need to face, to make these commitments, and how to make these commitments work for the supply chains, right? It is not something that brands just need to show. It has to make tangible change on the ground. License to operate. So businesses are part of a system, right? They are not independent. They have an impact on the community, on the resources, on the environment, and being sustainable is when they get that license to operate. So I talked a lot about risks, but when we talk about sustainability, it is now becoming more and more integral to your resilience and competitiveness. If you are ready to face the regulatory changes that are coming, you are in a far better position than somebody who responds to it. Right? If you are more resource efficient, that has an impact on your competitiveness. If you have sustainable practices, that is when brands and buyers are looking at you with far greater interest than somebody who needs to put this in place. And there's a huge market opportunity when we are, for example, if I look at circular economy, there is a need for so much innovation. There is a need for new business ideas, new business solutions. And that's just a whole new market out there. Yeah. Now, the last link that I included, I thought was an interesting read. You will find several like this, but it was also about how do you actually deliver on sustainability? Is it just about talk? Is it about big words? But how do you really get that impact going? So this is why we need sustainability. But if we come back and if we look at our situation today, and this is a little contextual to India, this is a little contextual based to our work or the premise on which our organization is based. Why is it that we don't see sustainability as a way of life? Why is it that SusMafia is a small group today rather than a large conversation that is happening all across the country, right? So I would not say that there is no business case. I think the business case is out there, it is there, but there is definitely low awareness, low acceptance of the business case for sustainability. The supply chains, because businesses can't do much about their own commitments unless their value chains and their supply chains also fall into place. The supply chains continue to remain complicated. There is lack of transparency. There are challenges that as you move to the lower tiers, how do you move them on the sustainability journey? It is unreasonable to expect the same solutions that work on the top tier that they will work on the lower tiers. We have to be innovative, we have to be flexible, we have to be clever about the new solutions that we look at, because I think people will go on the sustainability journey, but we also have to make it a little easy for some of the players who can't do this on their own. Lack of data for effective decision making, and I think this is also one of the things that you look at. Can we actually have data, can we have technology enabled solutions so that you know exactly the extent of the problem and what needs to be addressed? We need new innovations, we need new technological solutions, and we need thinkers, because if we look at the problems, people are so used to working in a way, in a particular manner. They're so used to thinking that there is no solution, that it needs somebody from outside to come and put the various pieces together and come up with something new, which actually makes people sit up and say, yes, this could work, we never thought about it, right? When we talk about market related challenges, there is still lack of finance for sustainability, right? There is, okay, we do have energy efficiency programs, we did have a lot for cleaner energy, but I think there is sometimes a mismatch between what is offered and what is really needed by the industry on the ground, especially for the SMEs. Consumers do not always reward sustainable behavior. So I think consumer awareness also comes with a pinch, because sustainability investments do make an impact, but they do need to be recognized and rewarded adequately by the market. And if that is not happening, then I think we are placing too much of the burden on businesses as a whole. Lack of adequate policy support is something that we are seeing. And what needs to happen is that policy can't be made at the center, at the top level. Policy has to speak to what is happening on the ground. What are some of the innovations? What are some of the changes that are happening? How do we tie the two? And how do we also create capacity between the policymakers to embed sustainability when they are setting their policies? And I think one of my favorite ones is the limited collaboration between stakeholders. Sustainability can never be any one person's baby, right? It requires different people. It requires us to understand who is best placed in a collaboration or in a value chain to play certain roles, right? How do you get these collaborations? And when we talk about stakeholder collaboration, I think we have to keep in mind multi-stakeholder collaboration is not a new concept. I think it's a no-brainer. It's been talked about, but what needs to happen? Can we change the dynamics of this collaboration today? Can we also bring in the voices that have continued to remain unrepresented, the vulnerable, the marginalized, the small scale? Can we bring them into the conversation for solutions that impact them? So I think that's something that continues to remain a gap. Now, having said that context, I just want to take a bit and talk about then Center for Responsible Business where I work. What is it that we do? And how is it that we work in this ecosystem to promote corporate sustainability? Now, Center of Responsible Business has a very simple vision that businesses integrate sustainability into their very core, right? So it is embedded in their way of life, in their strategy, in their operations, in their value chain. And how is it that we do that? We are a think tank. So our mandate was to work with businesses, but we realized that unless we work with the larger ecosystem, there's not much that businesses will be able to do completely on their own, right? So we said, okay, we would work with multi-stakeholders, we would look at that engagement, and we would look at evidence-based engagement. So we do undertake policy and practice research. Then we look at capacity building and advisory. You understand sustainability. How do we start on that journey? How do we go ahead? What are some of the tools that are available to us? And who are the people you need to be speaking to? Who can join hands with you to deliver on these solutions? So uh, uh, those are some of our operational verticals when we look at. Now, sustainability is also a vast field. So how do I draw a little boundary for where we want to be? So we define, that circular economy because we see that as a huge opportunity. We see that as a fantastic way to start a lot of organizations on a sustainability journey and to bring in the systems approach that is much needed. Business and human rights absolutely critical. I think especially we do fairly poorly on this, and despite standards and certifications which have done a great job, we continue to see these violations. Private sector and SDGs, we are, SDGs, the sustainable development goals, offers a framework. It does offer an opportunity for businesses to align their operations because a lot of the SDGs do speak to business. They do require business support, because and this is core to the SDGs. That how do you look at partnerships? If you are saying that leave no one behind, unless businesses are part of the solutions here, we are not achieving on the SDGs. Voluntary sustainability standards, which do offer a good roadmap for businesses to start on the sustainability journey. But I think what we are very careful about, that voluntary sustainability standards should not be just saying that let's apply in as they are set outside. Can we keep having a conversation on what is a local reality, what is a country consideration? Do we need to adapt these standards to what happens here? Because I don't think it's realistic to expect that you can pick up a standard in toto and just apply it. And there are some conversations, some standards that have started this conversation. And lastly, SMEs and sustainability, though, you can look at it in the private sector, business and human rights, but SMEs uh, are critical to actually achieve your sustainability agenda. There's magnificent results you will see when you have, but they need a lot of hand holding, finance, incentives, technology, capacity building, awareness, transparency if we want to help them. And the sectors where we have typically tended to work are apparels and textiles, agro-based, ICT electronics, minerals mining, gems and jewelry, pharmaceuticals. And what happens is, I think we work more on the theme. And if there are new sectors, we do consider them. So that's about CRB. But what is it that when we undertake our work, what are some principles, what are some driving thoughts in our mind, right? And one thing we are very clear about, because we work a lot with international organizations, we work a lot with Indian organizations, we work with policymakers globally at the level. India needs to drive its own sustainability agenda. I think one of the challenges, or one thing we're very clear about, we are not simply delivering on commitments that are made on the global north. We have our own story to tell. We have some wonderful work that happens on the ground, and we need to be driving our own sustainability agenda. I mean, look at circular economy, for example. It started as a conversation around post consumption waste in the Western economies, which deal a lot with consumption. But circular economy principles are not something that are very new to the Indian mindset. That was an integral part of our culture. Over years, our consumption patterns have changed, but when it comes to circularity in India, we have to be clear, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for the producers here, right? And we cannot look at the same imperatives that we have outside. Environmental and social aspects have to be considered at par. It's interesting, we still have this conversation. Should we start with environment? Social will follow. Absolutely not. I think, as far as I'm concerned, the two have to go hand in hand, and they're so intertwined. How do you even separate the two? They're so intertwined. Today, if we are talking about climate risk, It is also talking about rise in poverty at the same time, because it is going to impact the vulnerable and the marginalized the most. Then businesses need to be part of the solution. We cannot now think that, okay, perhaps sustainability solutions will come from the government, etc. Without businesses, we are not getting anywhere. And this is not just a feel good factor. This makes absolute business sense. Today, if you are prepared to change the climate risks that are coming your way, then you are ensuring your survival, right? And when we talk about businesses, I'm saying business relationships need to transform. Now, a lot of our work does involve working with supply chain actors and with brands, with business, large businesses. And what needs to happen is we've seen a change. Large businesses first started with mandates, with certifications, with commitments that the supply chain actors had to make. Then we moved to capacity building, which I thought was great. But I think we are at a point where we need to go back to the drawing board and say, how do we look at risk sharing? How do we look at a more equitable distribution of benefits that are accruing from sustainability? Right. And those are some of the conversations that we've slowly started having. These are complex conversations. But without these, I don't think there is much motivation for businesses or encouragement for businesses to keep on that path of sustainability if their benefits are not going to accrue to them. I've made the point about stakeholder collaborations earlier, so I'm just going to go ahead. Then sustainability solutions need to be based on the requirements on the ground. I think we saw this in the CSR Act also initially, that great, it unlocked a huge pot of money, but did it deliver impact? Perhaps not. And I think that was corrected fairly quickly, because if you're looking at CSR solution, if you're targeting them to communities, then please ask the communities what do they want. And if I'm not mistaken, I heard that in this program that corporates and solution providers here work together, and solutions are looked at what the corporate needs. And I think that is just fantastic, because the solution has to speak to the problem. You can't have a solution and then look for the problem that it could fit into. And then what we are saying is we've worked with businesses for the longest time. We've said business case for businesses, let them be sustainable, let them adopt. But if markets are not ready, if there are not enough sustainable marketplaces, then where are the businesses going to sell? So we have also started engaging now on the creation of a marketplace which recognizes and rewards sustainable business. Robust data will underpin the success of sustainability initiatives. It's not just on science based targets, it's not just on your energy, water, chemical consumption, but even on the social side. I mean, we recently undertook a project, and a lot of it was based on speaking to workers on the ground, to the supervisors, and the kind of insights or the kind of challenges you will come up with. You will not be able to come up with relevant solutions if you don't have that data with you. Policy that we are talking about, because a lot of policies are in discussion, there is a need for better policy implementation, but they need to be inclusive. And when we say inclusive, how do you strike a balance between what's happening at the center and what's happening at the states? How do you get a better alignment, and how do you tie it into what is happening on the ground? What is it that the industry is asking for? We often hear that, okay, we have enough policies, can we look at better implementation? Can we look at a policy that is based on data? We are willing to collaborate. Can the policy actors work with us to get updated data and then make policies which impact us? So conversations like that, innovations will be key to the sustainability agenda, and youth and consumers, right? Because we are talking about youth employment also, but we are also saying the millennials, because they as consumers, they as employees, they as change drivers are going to be very key influences for sustainability. I'll just quickly go through this, and it is that we have a lot of different stakeholders that we work with. We are looking at policymakers, brands, suppliers, innovators, international organization, and a lot of that work is on collecting evidence, putting multi-stakeholder initiatives in place, looking at innovative frameworks. For example, Niti Aayog is now interested. They've been monitoring how governments have been doing on the the SDG index, but they're keen to now understand how they can capture or understand the private sector footprint when it comes to SDGs. So, what that framework could look like. We are an advisory to that. What is the business case for the private sector to engage on SDGs? We've helped Niti document that. So those are ways that we do, and also to take inputs that we are receiving and to place it with the policy actors. Sometimes, there's also a need for capacity building, like circular economy. Not everyone in the policy making field would be aware about the opportunities that it offers. So can we look at capacity building there? Yeah. For brands, we are saying that, okay, maybe capacity for your suppliers, but how can we also feed back into where brands practices perhaps could change for better collaboration in supply chains and value chains? Okay, I will not go into a lot of detail on this. Uh, I think I'm okay for this presentation to be shared. Happy to answer any questions. But what I wanted to take was just take an example, right? Because Ganesh did mention that can I talk about a little bit on how we work? And since I work on the circular economy space, I just took an example of circular apparel. My colleague Ramanuj, who's on the call with me, both of us worked on this very closely over the last couple of years. And I've taken the example of two projects that we worked on, and one was on inclusive policy making for circular apparel. The other more specifically said that what can we do about awareness and action on wastewater in the apparel and textile sector? How do we get the policymakers to take more action? How do we get the industry actors to make more commitments? That was the mandate that was given to us. And I just wanted to say that how would we typically go about this? Of course there is the research, but I think the key would be the primary research of it. There is enough in the secondary research. There's still not enough data. There's still not enough research. There's still not enough case studies about the good practices out there. Now, if you go to large units, large corporates, I think it's easier to document those case studies. If you talk to smaller businesses or mid-sized businesses, it becomes a little more tricky, it becomes a little more challenging. But I think there's an absolute critical need to start documenting and sharing those, because these are huge motivators for others to take action, right? If I look at consultation to the government with the solution providers, through our work, we came across technology providers, that there are small innovations that you can take in the process, there is technology that you can use, there are devices they can use. And it was very interesting to hear that solution provider said, look, I'm not looking for a policy support, because I think our solution or our technology makes absolute business sense. There is decent payback. But what they could do, they could be helped with is more awareness, more handholding, more matchmaking workshops between users of such solutions, because users are not aware that these solutions are out there, right? So those kind of matchmaking workshops, those kind of conversations, and creating knowledge products. And these might sound like simple things like case studies, articles, policy briefs, innovation dossier, but it is documenting a lot of good what's happening there and disseminating the same, right? Because, and it has helped us open up new avenues of conversation. That's exactly the purpose of doing things. It's not something, a project deliverable, you say I've created this, I've put out there, but how do you excite more conversation around this topic? So a forum is something that we looked at. So when we look at the outcomes, of course, there is the increased awareness. There is already a buzz now with policymakers on circular apparel. And the interesting thing was we had gone to different clusters. Each cluster has their own priorities, their own challenges, their own opportunities. And it's important because as a country, we are so diverse that we can't look at one solution fits all. And moreover, there are also opportunities to do a lot of cross learning. What is working in one cluster can be looked at in another one because they may be facing a challenge. Then there is an agreement to constitute a textile forum with a water stewardship lens, which is really to bring different actors together to really talk about water stewardship and how is it that the apparel and textile sector can look at a much more positive footprint. It was very interesting that we got a call from our financiers who said, okay, we want to look at financial products for water in the SME sector. Can you help us understand the opportunity when it comes to the sector that, whether it's water use technology or wastewater treatment, that what is the opportunity as a financier that I can look at? And I think that was absolutely exciting for us. So just I have when I say what is next, I've kept it very simple. I've not looked at the social side at all because that's a whole different conversation. I've looked at that when we are talking about environmental sustainability, what is it that CRB in particular is looking to do next? So one is this is a project which is at very nascent stages, but we're quite excited. It's a little like your Corporado program also. It is a sustainable marketplace that can be create a space where the buyers and sellers can come together, but We also take the organizations on a sustainability journey, the suppliers, that if they are at point A, can we help them to get to point B at their pace and align to what, would work for them and what their requirements are. And we are looking at designing programs. There are some conversations on SME, especially on the water space or SME clusters, circular apparel, wastewater. Can we look at market driven incentives and multi stakeholder initiatives? In particular, we are looking at the textile forum, also around circular electronics. So these are some things that, I think towards the end of the year, we will be in a position to make more announcements, share roadmaps on where we are going, but these are the broad areas which are on our agenda right now. So, with that, I think I have sort of overshot my time a little bit. So, I am just going to stop here and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Devyani. This was amazing. I think you have given a 360-degree understanding for us on how CRB works. I know that you